Hello everyone, welcome back to another class. So as you can see on my screen, today we are going to be talking at Firebase Authentication Overview, right? We're going to talk about how to integrate Firebase Authentication into our Flutter app, right? So with Firebase Authentication, it allows users to sign up, log in, and stay authenticated securely. That's what I'm going to be talking about. But before I proceed, I want you all to know that today, like this class is the last class for this Flutter mentorship program. Okay, I believe you guys have learned a lot. So weekend is coming. Make sure you practice what we have learned from the beginning to this point. If you have any question, the comment section is open, right? It's open. So on the Telegram, I know you guys cannot send messages for now. So I'm going to mention someone that you're going to send your messages to. And also our final QA section, right, for the week is coming up on Saturday. So we are going to be talking about, I'll update you guys on the Telegram channel, right? So we're going to be talking about your questions and anything that you have. So if you have not joined the Telegram community, I'm going to drop the link so you can join the Telegram community. And I also need you guys review about this mentorship program. I wanted to do it for the last part, but I said, let me just say it here. So I want you guys to drop your review. You can check me out on LinkedIn. You can check me out on Telegram and also on Twitter. Okay, so just drop your reviews, mention me, just let me know what you think about the mentorship class, and also you can help other people as well that don't know about the mentorship class so they can come back and rewatch the videos, right? The classes that we have already done in the past. Okay, that's you helping somebody. So just spread the kindness to others. All right, so let's proceed. So our content for today is, first we are going to look at Firebase overview. What is Firebase, and just get an overview of it. Then I'm going to talk about why you should use Firebase. And also I'm going to walk you guys through how to set up Firebase in Flutter. Then I will give you an example, email, password, and also Google sign-in. And also I'll talk about handling authentication state. Okay. And then we are going to build a simple authentication app that is going to utilize email and password. And then I will show you guys Google sign-in, which is one social authentication method that you guys will learn. Okay. And I'm going to show you when we are building the simple authentication app, I'm going to show you guys how to log in and log out from the app. I'm going to show you guys how to sign up with email and password, and also do some persistent authentication, like to allow users stay logged in, and also to check if the user is logged in or not. Then we navigate them to the correct screen. Okay. All right, so let me get started with Firebase overview. So in case you don't know, Firebase is a backend as a service. Sorry. It's provided by Google that helps developers build scalable, real-time applications without managing their own back-end infrastructure. So with Firebase, you don't need to worry about writing back-end infrastructure. You don't need to worry about writing APIs. You don't need to worry about deploying your server to any dedicated, like maybe other back-end services, right? Or storage services. So Firebase handles everything for you. What you just need to do is to sign up, set up your console, consume the different packages, right, to do what you want to do, the different services. So most of those services are authentication, database, cloud functions, storage, analytics, and more, right? You also have Crashlytics. So there's a lot of them. So in today's section, we are only going to focus on authentication. But just know that there are other things like database, cloud functions. So later, I'm going to be creating a standalone course, a complete standalone course for all these services, right? It's going to be an in-depth one, very deep. So stay tuned, guys, and we are going to do a lot in this community. So, and all these services are designed to work seamlessly with your mobile apps, or if you are building web application, it's also going to work. So now let's talk about why use Firebase. There are different points. I'm going to mention 5 points, okay? The first is that Firebase is easy to set up and use. No need to manage backend servers or complex infrastructure, okay? Firebase is scalable. It supports millions of users without worrying about scaling database or authentication. It supports real-time. It has real-time and offline support. Remember in our last class, we talked about persistence using local storage. Most people might want to build offline first, right? App. Offline first, that means users will be able to access your app when they are not connected to the internet and also access your app when it's connected to the internet. That is very, very important, especially when you're working with APIs. Okay, like external third-party APIs and all that. You're consuming them. You save some data on local storage. But with the help of Firebase, it automatically supports offline functionality, right? So you can sync data in real time and works offline with Firestore and real-time database. You can see that it's very important. Then we have the secure authentication, which I'm going to be talking about in today's class. It provides built-in authentication for email and password, Google, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, and a lot more. You also have LinkedIn, GitHub authentication as well. Okay. Then finally is cross-platform. So just like Flutter is cross-platform, same thing applies to Firebase. It works across iOS, Android, web, and desktop with the same backend. Okay, so now what we are going to be talking about is the setting of Firebase in Flutter. But first, let me talk about a little about Firebase Authentication. So it allows developers to securely sign in users using multiple methods like email, password, Google sign in. I already mentioned that, right? We also have anonymous authentication. There's a course that is coming on that I'm creating. I'm going to talk about everything concerning Firebase authentication. Okay, so make sure you're actively following me on all channels and also following the community and also the YouTube. Subscribe. I'm going to talk about all those things for you. All right, so now let's talk about setting up our Firebase. So here we have our app, right? And as you can see here, we have, okay, I'm going to create, we have something here. Yeah, this login screen, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, I will come to my views and create Firebase authentication screen. All right. So inside here, I'm going to put in, let me just copy this login screen and all that. So right here, I'm going to come to, I don't know where this is again. Login screen, right? Yeah, this is login screen. So I'll just copy this and, okay, I'll do two things actually. Let me separate the UI so that you won't get confused. So here we have, I'll create this as a folder. I'll call this Firebase Auth. Okay. Then I'll move this guy into it, like create a new file. Let me rename it to Firebase login, right? So I just want to make things clear for you guys. Then we have Firebase sign up. All right. So I'm going to paste this one here, which is the Firebase sign up. And I will change the file name to Firebase sign up and do the same thing here. So this should be sign up screen. And so the sign up is going to take email and password, right? And then we have sign up. Okay. Then let me remove this. Okay. So we have the same thing for login as well. I'm just going to change this to Firebase sign in. Okay, let me use login so the name will just be consistent across screens. So we have login as well. Email is valid, blah, blah, blah. And then this should be login. Okay. So here now I'll go to our main.dat. So I'm going to create two buttons. Okay. And one will be sign up and login. So I'll create them as a role because I want it to have, let it just be displayed side by side. So this should be like this, and I'll wrap this with a role. and then put the second one inside here. And now you can see how it's displaying. Cool. So I can align this now to the center of the screen, right? Using main axis alignment dot center. Then try to put some spacing in between this item. So if you hover on row has spacing. So for you to get this, make sure you're using the latest version of Flutter. Okay. So if you're behind, you may not get this property. Okay. Currently, I'm using I can't find the version, but I think what I'm using for this is Flutter 3.27.1. Okay. So I'll put spacing to be 10. You can see now there's space in between those items. So this is cool. I think I really love this thing that they did in like Flutter version. Yeah. So here, this is going to be login. Okay. And this is going to be sign up. All right. I'm thinking about something. I guess this pattern shouldn't be the case. So just pay attention to what I want to say now. I want to manage user data, right? That means if users are logged in, take them to the dashboard. So let's assume this is the dashboard. But if users are not logged in, we are going to take them to another screen where they will have to log in or sign up. What do you think about that? I think that's a better idea, because if you look at apps now online, they have splash screen. Then from the splash screen, if the user is not authenticated, it's going to take you to the login screen, right, where you need to log in. But if you're authenticated, it will take you directly to your dashboard screen. So let's simulate similar logic in our app. So I know this one that I did here, I'm going to remove it. All right, so I'm going to remove it. I'm just trying to, since you guys are beginners, and I just want to make it clearer for you so that you understand better. So in this view, I'm going to create splash screen. So this splash screen is going to be the first thing that users are going to see, right, when you open the app. Then from the splash screen, I'm going to check if the user is authenticated before taking them to, depending on the screen, if you're authenticated or not. So join me as I build my body. This should be splash screen, but let me just use a test widget here and say splash screen. Okay, so I know nothing is here at the moment. Then I will create a new screen. I will call this login. Yeah, this is the login screen. So once users are not authenticated, we are going to take them to the login screen. Okay, then from the login screen, we are also going to create a test widget somewhere here that says, oh, this is not nice. I'm supposed to show you guys a virtual representation of what is happening. So let me go to my main.dat. Now the first screen is no longer going to be the home page. It's going to be the splash screen, right? So the home page in this case is going to be the dashboard. As you can see, we have our splash screen. So somewhere above here, inside our init state, I'm going to do some check init. So I'm going to say navigate. This is just like a method that I'm creating, all right? Click on the light bulb to generate a new method. So inside this method is where I'm going to handle the check if the user is authenticated or not. So I'm going to use future.delayed, okay? I'm going to use future.delayed. So this is going to delay for 3 seconds before navigating the user into the app. So what we are going to do first is just to call navigate, because at the moment users have not navigated, right? Users have not signed in. So we just statically do navigator dot push and remove, okay? Because we don't want to save this stack. I already told you guys about routing to different screen in the navigator class. So also pay attention to that. You can go back and we watch it. So we have our contest here. We have the login screen, because the reason why I'm navigating to login screen so that we just finish up the UI for you guys to see. I think error is here. This shouldn't be. This should be material page route. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, so predicate. So this should just be, let's just return false. Cool. This is showing error. Don't use build context across async gaps. Okay, so one way you can make this to work is to check if the state is mounted before navigating, okay, to get rid of that error. So this feature is an async gap, right? Is an asynchronous method, so it's not good to use build context inside. So that's why we got that warning. So see what happens now. If I restart the app, init state gets called, and it's going to, after 3 seconds, it's going to take us to the login screen. Okay. So let's build out the login screen a little. So inside here, I'm going to have a test widget that says don't have an account. So that's for users that don't have an account. So what happens? You are going to sign up. So when you tap on this button, what happens is that it's going to take you, we're going to do add tap listener to it. You see this a lot in apps, right? So it's going to take us now to navigator.push, and we have a material page routes. It's going to take us to Firebase sign up, right? That's for users that don't have an account, okay, to take you to the screen. So I'm also going to copy this because I will need it as well for the login screen. So you sign up, this is sign up. Then let's assume that user have already created an account. So you don't need to create another account again. You can just navigate and then let's say already have an account. So you sign in. Okay. This is going to take us to Firebase. Nice. So now you can click on sign in, sign up. It takes us to the different screens, right? And this is pretty much good. Okay. That's not nice. So this is pretty much good. And so now what we can do is to set up our Firebase, okay? Is to set up Firebase. So I'm going to go to, first thing you want to do, go to your console, go to Google, search Firebase, right? It's going to tell you to sign up and make sure you create an account using your Google account, right? Once you're done with that, you are going to see a blank screen. In case that's if you have not used Firebase before, you're going to see a blank screen. And in your own case, you're not going to see any project, okay? Currently, I have some projects. That's why it's showing like this. So if you don't have any project, it's going to show empty. You're only going to see this button. So the first thing you want to do is to click on create a project, right? Then it's going to ask you for a name. In this case, we are going to say Flutter app, all right? Make sure it's all lowercase. No. Yeah, don't use any special characters. Just use space in there, okay? Then you click on continue. You enable Gemini in Firebase. You can disable it, you can enable it, whichever way. So enable Google Analytics for this project, yes. Then you select the default account, just say default account for Firebase. So it's going to use the account that you use to sign up into Firebase. Then you create your project. So just give this some few seconds to run. So while it's running, we're also going to add other dependency, like we need Firebase authentication dependency and Google sign-in dependency, and we also need Firebase core. Those are the 3 important dependencies that I'll be using to set this up because that's what we want to achieve, which is authentication. So go to your pub.dev, and from here, just search Firebase, okay? It's going to show you the first Firebase core. You can see that my Firebase team and its Flutter favorite. So you can also go through their no much documentation, but I have examples that I can go through. So what you want to do is to copy this, go to your project and do your Flutter pub add Firebase core. Once you have done that, we also need other ones too to add, which are this one is for Firebase messaging if you want to handle push notification, right? This one is Firebase Auth that will be needing to handle Firebase authentication. So I'm going to copy that as well and paste it. So, as we are adding it, you can see automatically is adding them into our prospect.yaml file. So now we need a final one, which is this one is for Cloud Firestore. If you want to save data into our database, we have Firebase Analytics, Crashlytics. If you want to send error logs, you want to log errors to Firebase in case your app is live. We also have remote config, cloud functions, Firebase performance, and a lot of them. Okay. So what we are looking for now is Google sign-in, right? So I'm going to go here and search for Google Auth. Let's see. I think Google sign-in. All right, so we have Google sign-in because I want to make use of Google authentication. So we can copy this as well, go to our project and do the same thing. You can see it has been added. So far, we have everything set up. So there will be some guidelines as to what we need to do. So you can just go, but I don't normally use this plugin documentation. So I will show you how to get documentation for all Firebase services. Go to Flutter Fire. Just search Flutter Fire. Okay, it's going to show you this first website, Flutter Fire. So click on it. It's going to take you here where you're going to see the documentation about Flutter, how to use Firebase services, all of them. So click on, let's go to get started. Yeah, get started. Let me use switch to dark mode. I don't know if you guys can see it clearly. Well, let's use our light mode here. Yeah, for the sake of this course. So here is an overview. Get to know Firebase. You are going to see a lot of things, how to set it up. And if you look at the left side of your sidebar here, you're going to see authentication, overview, password auth, email link auth, social auth, and all that. So for the sake of this tutorial, for the sake of this today's class, we are going to be using these examples, right? These example tutorials to showcase how to get this done. So I will show you in case of next time, you guys can just visit this website to get your stuff done. All right. So now that we have added all those various dependencies, okay, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is setting up Firebase. Let's return back to our project. You can see your Firebase project is ready, right? The console is ready. You click continue, just give it some few seconds. It's going to load this up. And from here, you can see currently you don't have any project, okay? So you can create your project manually from here, okay? But I don't normally use this route. So what I'm going to do for you guys is to show you how to do that using your terminal. It's very easy and straightforward. So what you want to do first is go to project setting, click on this. Maybe if your own is hidden, you just click here, it's going to show. You click on project settings, okay? So no, not here, sorry, my bad. You go to build, click on authentication. And from authentication, you want to get started to enable authentication for your project. So click on it. Then now it's going to show you the various sign-in methods that you want to use in your project. So here I want to use Firebase password. So I will need to enable it and click. Right. Then if you want to add more providers, you're going to click on add new provider. Now we want to set up Google authentication. So I'm going to enable this one as well. Support email. Let's just use our support email and click on save. All right, so now we have the both providers enabled. If you want to enable other provider for you to experiment or work with, there are others, Facebook, phone, or Anonymous, Twitter, Apple, and the rest. Okay, so you can just work with them. These are the things that we need for this section. So currently you can see we have no users. Nobody have signed into our app. Nobody have signed up, or all sorts of things. So let's go back to our authentication. All right, so right here now, what I'm going to do, we have set up our console. Okay, so now the next thing is to start making, like writing the codes to perform authentication in our app. So email and password and Google sign-in, I've talked about that. Email and password is just more like you put in your email and then you define a password. But with Google sign-in, you don't really need to use your password or right. You just have to use the Google Auth flow, right? Then handling auth states. And now let's build a simple authentication app to demonstrate all of these things that I've just talked about. I know building most times is far more better than just talking. Remember what I told you before? When you add a new plugin, right? Try to kill the app and run it. But for now, we are not going to do that. First, we have some few things to do before we kill the app and run it. So let's go to our Flutter Fire overview. Get to know Firebase and all that. You can see you must add Firebase core if you're installing. Then since I told you that I will be showing you guys how to use the Firebase CLI, that's what I'll be walking you guys through. So install the CLI if not already done. So if you already have that installed, just go to open up your terminal, or if you're using PowerShell, right? If you're using PowerShell, or you can even do it inside your project directly, but let's say you're using PowerShell for instance. Okay, if you're using PowerShell here, what we can do is to just paste this command, that pub global activate flutterfire CLI. Okay, you just have to run that command and it's going to activate it for us. But I already have the .CLI activated. Okay, I think this one will just upgrade it for me, but just run this command. Okay, if you have any issues, think you have to run, make sure you set up that. If you already installed that globally, and if you're able to even run Flutter application, then you should be good to run this command. All right, so once you run this command, and if you encounter any error, let me know, right, either in the comment section, right, so, or in class on Saturday. So I'm going to walk you guys through that as well. So, but once you run this thing up, it's going to activate Flutterfire CLI. Then once that is done, you can just run Flutterfire configure. So you don't need to run it inside your terminal anymore. Go to your project right here and then run Flutterfire configure. But before you do that, let's do something like Firebase login. So you need to log in first of all before you do this. So in my case, I'm already logged in. As you can see, I'm logged in. But let me log out to show you guys how this is done from scratch. All right, currently I've logged out. So I'm going to log in now into my account. So it's going to tell me allow Firebase to collect CLI. Just type Y, enter, and it's going to take us to a sign-in screen where we can just click our authentication account we want to use. All right. To sign into Firebase CLI, all right, and then you click continue. And yeah, so that's the account. Is going to set everything up for you. Firebase CLI login successfully. So you are logged into Firebase CLI. You can immediately close this window. So we don't need it anymore. And make sure the account you are signing into matches the account you used to create the Firebase project. All right. So that is it for that part. If you go back to your project now, you see that success logged in as this. All right. So the next thing you want to do is just to run Firebase Flutterfire configure, right? When you run Flutterfire configure, it's going to give you options like to select the project that you want to set up. So in this case, we have a Flutter app, right? Which is the one we just created. So I'm going to screw up. Wow, this is much. So I'm going to screw up to, oh, there's a lot of projects here, but let's just move your keyboard, use your keyboard arrow right? You click enter, right? Then you can select anyone. It doesn't matter. Android, iOS, just select enter. And you can see it's going to be creating different files for us. Let me collapse this. Registering Firebase project. And you can see it's creating different files. Firebase debug, right? Let me collapse this a little. If you look at your Android here, it's also going to create a new file somewhere around here. Let's just allow it to complete here. So all right, all good. Currently, you can see Firebase configuration file, Firebase option generated successfully with the following Firebase app. So now everything is good. If you go to your app, you're going to see Google services.json file for Android. You're going to see your project name, right? Project ID, storage bucket. You're going to see your package name. You're going to see your client ID, right? Your current key. So don't use my current key. Okay. So make sure you create your project and get yours. So we also have same thing for if you go to the iOS directory, you're going to see under runner, you're going to see the Google services info.plist file. You see the reverse client ID, and all that. So Android doesn't need much configuration, but since I'm using my simulator here, I'm going to show you guys how to set it up for iOS. All right. So let's move on to the next thing, which is the info.plist file. I think we need to add some additional configurations here. I normally forget the string and all that. Let me just search for it online to see if I'll get anything. And also the last thing we have here is the Firebase JSON. No, I think we should have some other one, which is Firebase option. Yeah, Firebase options. You can see this part is important. Okay, currently Firebase doesn't support Linux, so that's why you're seeing it's going to throw you this error when you try to use it on Linux. But so far you have all the configuration file. Try not to delete this file, okay? They are very important. Now that we have this up, I'm going to do one last thing before I kill and rebuild the app. So let's go back to our project. Here it's telling us to initialize Firebase, so it's very important. Inside your void build main main.dat. Let's go to our main.dat. So above this run app, we are going to paste this command and add this to be a sync, and then import the Firebase core. Do the same thing for Firebase options. Okay. Now we just have these two lines of code added. So this will just initialize Firebase for us. Okay. Now we have that one set. This one is manual installation. We did not use the manual installation. You can see how simple it is when you use CLI. If you go to your Firebase console now, let's go to project overview. You're going to see that, let's refresh this guy. You will notice that it has automatically created the Android and iOS app and all those apps for us. So just give it some few seconds to load. All right, you can see here we have 4 apps. We have the iOS, web, Windows, and Android. So we have all our apps created already. If you go to project settings, you're going to see all your apps. You're going to see your Firebase app, Android, and other things. Okay. So that is pretty much it for this. You can see how smooth the whole installation process is. You did not do it manually. So let's go back to our Flutter Fire. We have added this to initialize Firebase. Okay. Then the next step, let's look at things CLI. All right, there are also other things in case you get, oh, I did not talk about this, but in case you get error when trying to use Firebase login or Firebase logout, you will need to make sure you have installed npl, right? So you need to run npl install think it's small like this command. Just go to your terminal. So sorry guys, I forgot to talk about this. But you need to run this npl install Firebase 2 before running this command, that's pub global activate. Okay, because I know most of you might encounter errors while running it. So sorry I did not address that initially. But make sure you run this first and install npl package that you use to set it up. All right, then before you run Flutter configure and then you carry out this other action. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You don't need any other additional steps here. So now let's go back to let's go to authentication. So authentication is where we are going to be doing the main things. So as you can see here, we have, you can watch this video to just get an idea of what authentication is. So we get started. Okay, first thing you need to do is to add your Flutter pub add Firebase auth. You need to add your import, right? Then you can set up, I think this one is not really, yeah, you can ignore this one. You can check auth state as well. User is currently signed in, user is signed in, right? You can just use this to manage authentication state. Okay, you can use this to handle ID token and all those stuffs. All right, so I don't want to overcomplicate things, so I'll just go straight to what we need to talk about. This one is used for getting users' profile, current user. You'll be able to retrieve the display name, the email address, the photo URL in case the user use social authentication to log in, like Google, Firebase, and Google, Apple, Facebook, and the rest. You can retrieve their photo URL. Then you can also check if user is verified using this method. So I'm going to show you guys how to get the user ID. It's based on the user ID that we can validate if the user is signed in or not. Here you can also get user provider details. A lot of things are here. You can also update user photo URL, update display name as well. You can also update user email, send email verification. This is very important when you want to verify user email before they can use your app. So Firebase will automatically send the email to the user's provided email. So it's very important when you're using normal email and password authentication. You can set language code, update password as well. Okay. You can, this is good when you want to, maybe user want to change their password. Assume user signed in using email and password and they want to update their password. You can use this. You can use this one too to send password reset email. Okay. And the user will provide their email and then you will send the email to the user's device. Firebase will handle it for you, and also the resetting, Firebase will handle it for you. Okay. So the user can just come back to your app and log in with the new email. You can also use this one to delete a user. Okay. Then to re-authenticate the user, there are just logics here that you can go through. So now our main focus is password auth. Before you begin, if you haven't already, follow this step to get started guide. We have already talked about this. Then enable email and password signing. We have already done this in our Firebase console. Then this is the method to create a password-based account. So final credential awaits, create user with email and password. Then you pass the email address of the user, the password, and if there's any error, Firebase is going to handle it here. This is error handling. I talked about it as well. Then also you can handle error effectively. So this method is used for signing user into your app, right? Sign in with email and password. All right, you can use this one to sign out user that have already signed in. But I want to show you guys one thing first before we move into this Firebase. I want to set up the info.plist file for the Android. That's for iOS users. Okay. So Google sign in. I just hope that we'll have an update for that. iOS configuration, and that's what I'm just looking for. If it's going to be here. All right, so I can't find it. I just want to get the iOS configuration. So, okay, iOS integration. Let's see if we are going to get that. All right, so this is what I'm looking for. So when you go to the iOS integration, this is like setting up iOS. For Mac OS, you can include this in your plist file, but I'm now working on iOS. So it's for Android. So first thing we need to do is to add the client ID from the Google Service Info into your app. So I'm going to copy this guy, go to our project. So this is our info.plist file that you will find under iOS runner info.plist. And so just make sure you don't make mistake. This key is together with this one, this key is together with this one, this key is together with this one. So we're just going to come down below it and add, make sure the indentation is correct. Same thing applies to, when we are working with prospect.yaml file. So we have, let me clear this, GID client ID. So in order for you to get this, your iOS client ID, just go to Google Services info.plist file. You're going to see your client ID here. So we need to copy this line of code, go back to your info plist file and add this. All right. If you have done that, we are going to return back again to, if you need to authenticate to a backend server, you can add a GID server client ID key, right? But we are not working with any server, so I will ignore that. Then we have another thing, then add the CF bundle URL types attribute below in the project, the same place where we added our info plist file. So most times that CF bundle comes with this, but it's not here. So what we can do here is just to copy from this key, Google sign-in section. So let's just copy the whole of this. Go back to just below this last one that we added. You can paste it there. Also work on the indentation as well. All right, like so. We can just remove all these guys. We don't need that. Oops. So here now we have the URL scheme. What we are going to add is the reversed URL, the reverse client ID. This is the client ID. We are going to add the reverse of it. So in order to get the reverse of it, go back to your Google Services info file. You are going to see reverse client ID. So just copy this reverse client ID. You can see it's just similar with this one, but is in a reverse format. All right. So we go to the info.plist file, remove that and replace it with this one. So that's pretty much everything we need for Google sign-in. And yeah, we are good to go. So now what I'm going to do is just to kill this app and rerun it. Then we can now start testing things out. Okay. Let's all right, I think I'm getting error. This is for iOS, so it's telling me that automatically assigning platform iOS with version 12 on. So what I'm going to do, I'll go to my port file. Most times you won't get this on Android. So I'll go to my port file, right, under iOS directory. And here I'm going to uncomment this. So just remove this comment and you can leave this like this, or I normally use 13 iOS version, so stick with that. And once you have done that, if you are coming from iOS background, so we can just run pod install and pod update. I know okay, sorry, we need to move into the iOS directory, which is this, using change directory, cd change directory into iOS directory. Okay, then you can run this command. So just give it some few seconds to run and then we can test our app, then build it. Okay. It's taking time, but let's still give it that time. Oh, this is taking a lot of time. But yeah, let's just wait. All right, I think while this is running, let's work on the different logics that are going to handle the login, right, and the sign up. So I'm going to be doing everything inside this ephemeral state because I want you guys to clearly understand it all. Okay, let me create an authentication state provider that is going to help us to achieve this. I think that would be much more better if you ask me. For better understanding, I don't know which one would be better. Okay, let's work with ephemeral states. All right. So I'm going to write the logics for sign up, sign in, and Google sign up inside. No, let me just show you guys the best way to do this. So instead of doing it inside this file, I think our app is currently running. So I will just, everything is done. So I will just rerun the app. All right. So while it's running, right here, we're going to create auth service. We have weather service where we handled all the weather authentication stuffs. We also have DB service, right? So here I'm going to create a new service called Authentication Service. All right. So inside this authentication service, you're just going to have different methods. So the first method is going to be login with email and password, right? Then we are going to have another one for uh, sign up with email and password, and then we're going to have logout user, right? Then we are going to have finally is Google authentication. Okay, so these are the four methods that are going to go into this Firebase service. So before I start, remember I told you that we're going to be using this as an example. So I'm going to start with password auth. So from here, what we want to do, we just have to copy this try and catch exception that I've already given us. So inside here, we have to create future. Let's call this login with email and password. And it's going to have named parameters, right? We have the required one, which is going to be email. And we have another one, password. Okay. Let's mark these as asynchronous. And yeah, we use our try and catch. So this email address goes here. Okay, and the credential, this is it. Then we need to import Firebase auth because we already added it. So we just have Firebase auth.instance.create user with email and password. So we're going to import Firebase auth here. And so if there's if the password is weak, we are going to return the password provided is too weak. If the account already exists for that email, that means we are trying to log in, create user here. So if the user already exists, we are going to return a message that, hey, user already exists. All right. So looking at this, what should I do now? Right. So what I should do is in this bool, okay, I'm going to return I don't know if you guys are familiar with records, but records is another collection type that is available in Flutter, that actually. So records helps us to return data like still in values, just like map. We can use map to return data. But I love using record, right? Record is just like using something like this. We have string, message, then we can have another one string, let's say bool status. So let me make it like this. So this message now, record uses parentheses, okay? and it also uses another parenthesis. We can still decide to use map. I don't know. I'm just trying to work on something that is going to be clear for most of us. We can work with map. All right. To make things easier, remember we created a model before, right? I showed you guys how to create models. Fine. So we're going to create a model that is going to return the data that we want. So here I'm going to say authentication model. I'm going to pass the data. So we have class authentication model. So first thing I want here is the message and then bool status. Okay. Then we'll just create an instance method of it, which is going to be required. All right. So we have defined the structure of our return model. I think this is much better. Right, but I will also urge you guys to go and study records and see how to use records. It's very much good. So here I'm going to return the data type that we want to return, which is authentication model. So right here, if everything checks, what I'm going to return, right, if the credential was successful, what I'm going to return is just to say return authentication model, and this is going to be message account created successful, and the status is going to be true because everything was successful. Okay. Then also in this case, if password is weak, I'm going to return this, which is the password provided is too weak, something like this. But it's even better instead of this. We can just, because most times Firebase formats things for us, but we can do something like this. Let me, what am I saying? So we can do something like this. Right? But if you don't have the strength to handle all the cases, you can just do something like this. You can just do something like this, and you return e.message. All right? If it's empty, you can just return error occurred. Something like this is still going to work. So depending on what you want to, which route you want to take. All right? But this one will also give you the message that you want. So here we can now say an error occurred. Please try again, because here we don't know the actual error. But in your own case, as a developer, try to log that error. Okay, try to log the error. It's very important, right? Log the error, though you might not show the error to users because not all users are technical to understand it, right? You need to format it, but in your own case, try to log the error to understand what the error is about. All right, I'm going to save that. This is just a simple method to log in with email and password. So I'm going to copy the same method and do the same thing for sign up with email and password. All right. So instead of using create, no, what did I do? This is login with email and password. So I'm supposed to use sign up with email and password. Yeah, create user with email and password. Nice. So this should be sign in with email and password, where we are not going to say sign in with email and password. Okay, it takes the email and the password feed as well. So if we can just sign in successful. Sign in was successful. Cool. So this handles the sign in with email and password for us. Then the next one I want to do now is to log out users. It's very straightforward. Log out, you just have to call sign out, Firebase auth.instance.signout. Most times you might want to handle error cases. So do something like this. Let's log the error and to know what it is, why it caused the error. And then we can just return false. Okay, so this should be bool. And once it's successful, you can just return true. That means everything was successful. Then for Google authentication, which is signing with Google, we can just go back now. Let's return back. Okay, this is already giving us the, okay, let's see. In case you're wondering what kind of plugin I'm using that is giving me this hint, I can't even remember the extension. I think is error lens is giving me this error lens stuff. So in case you want to install it, git blame. I don't know what I'm using to give me that auto suggestion stuff. I think it's this tab line. Yeah, I think it's this tab line. Yeah. Tab 9. So it gives me the auto completion for different languages. So you might want to check it out to support you as well. So this, we need to import this as well because we already added Firebase, the Google sign-in in our project. So we need to click to import it, and it's going to be added here. And so let's look at how we can fully set up Firebase sign-in using social auth. If you go to social auth, you're going to see Google. You add this dependency, you're going to see the trigger method, right? So this is it. So I'm going to go back to my project. So I don't need this. Let's add this. I don't need this as well. So we need to return, since we are signing with credential, right? Yeah. All right, so this is, I think there's an error, something will cause error somewhere. I believe so, but I'll try to figure it out once we run it. Sign in, I believe something will cause error, but let's just see. First thing you need to do is to trigger the authentication flow. We need to call Google sign-in account, Google user, await Google sign-in.sign-in. Then we obtain the auth details from the request, Google sign-in authentication, Google auth user dot authentication. Then we'll create a new credential from the auth provider. Okay, we'll create a credential by passing the ID token and the access token. Then here we are using Firebase Authentication, which is this package that we added, this one. All right, they are working hand in hand. So we're going to use it, Google Firebase auth.instance or sign in with credential. Then we are going to pass the credential. And then here we say signing with Google was successful and the status is true. We return it back to the user. So this is how simple we can create an authentication service to handle everything about authentication for us. All right. So now we are going to go back to our project. I will go to our view. We have our login screen, right? We have our provider. So here I'm going to create a new provider. You can see that I'm trying to utilize everything that we have learned in the past videos. So I'm trying to combine separation of concern. I'm trying to combine creating services, providers, right? And also creating our views, separating everything all together. So here we're going to have our authentication provider.dat. So here I have my class called authentication provider, and you know what to do, extend change notifier. So I need to create a state, like a loading state, in case the app is loading. When user clicks the button, there'll be a loading state right before you move users to any screen. So we have a bool is loading. So initially it's going to be false. Okay. Then yeah, we can create this as a getter and a setter. Let's say gets is loading equal to is loading. All right, so this works. Remove the final because we'll be needing that to change. So right here, the first thing I'm going to do is to create the auth service. I'm going to initialize the authentication service here. All right. Then to make things easier, we just have login, right? Login user. So this is already handling it for us. So we don't need to call set state here. So whenever we load, let me remove this. Whenever we load, is loading, we are going to call notify listener. And here we're going to call await auth service dot login. Can sign in with email and password. Then we're going to pass the email, and we're also going to pass the password as well. Don't know why this is showing error. Email, password. Okay. So the user here, we are going to check after assuming successful login, emit an object. Okay, we don't need to assume everything. So if we are going to say if user dot status, right, is equal to this case, we don't need to even handle our try and catch anymore because we already done that inside the authentication service, right? We have already handled the try and catch and every other exception. So here, what we can do is to say if status is equal to true, right? What we are going to do is to say all right, to make it easier, let me also create a message that is going to be displayed to the users. So we have a status state that is going to tell us that, okay, this authentication logic that we tried to perform was successful. So that's where I need to put this one, right? Status equal to true and status. So I think I need the if statement here. So I need to check if the user.status, right, if it's true, something. Okay, I don't need that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around some few things. So is loading is equals to false, yeah. So once it returns any status whatsoever, we are going to set the loading state to false. That means to remove any loading indicator that is going to show on the screen, right? I think this is much more better. Okay. And here we do the same thing, right? Then let's do for social auth. Let's do for social auth, like Google auth. Right? We use set loading states to true, and we say sign in with Google, and we don't need all these other details, right? So we just set these states to false and other states to true. So I think this is pretty much fine. So this logout should be logout. We don't need all these additional details. Okay, logout is returning just a bool. So we need to set the status here to status like so. All right. So once it returns the status, if the status is true or false, we are going to navigate the user to the right screen or show a dialog or print it to console, whatever we want to show, right? To just mark it as error. So this is pretty much everything that we need for our authentication flow. So another thing I need to do, remember I told you before you use a provider, you need to register it. But let me just show you a case whereby you did not use the provider. You did not register the provider. You see that it's going to show us error. So I'm going to come here. No, this is our service. I'm going to come to the view. First, let's handle login, right? So I'm going to wrap this with our scaffold or padding because I want this guy to be accessible everywhere because I want to show a loading indicator. All right, so I'm going to wrap this with our authentication. Let's call this consumer and auth provider. I'll call it, yeah, let me call it login provider, all right? Right, so you can see now, immediately I saved it, we are getting this error. Could not find the correct provider, authentication provider above this consumer. So we have not registered it. So we need to do that inside the main.dat. So this was the error I wanted you guys to see in case you encounter it in your project. And you can see this is the advantage of using multi-provider. It allows us to add multiple change notifier, right? You can see immediately I added it, the error disappeared. So right here now, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to our main dot, I think the shared preference, our splash screen. So what I want to show us in our splash screen is how to check authenticated user. So I'm going to come here and I will check if user is null. That means the user have not signed into our app. So we're going to take them to the login screen. But if user is not null, user has been authenticated, we are going to take them to the sign up screen, right? Is that understandable? So let's say Firebase auth. We are going to get it from the Firebase service. Instance current user current user is, if is equal to null, that means this is a new user trying to access our app, right? Let me remove this, right? If Firebase auth.instance.current user is equal to null, what happens? I'm taking them to the Firebase login screen. But if user is not null, I'm going to take them to the home page, which is our dashboard. All right. So now from the dashboard, users will be able to log out from the app. Right. I hope you guys are following. So I'm going to save this. This is actually what I added inside my splash screen, right? You can see the init state, navigate, it just handles that check. I'm trying to keep things simple so that you all can understand. So now if I do a hot restart, it's going to take me to the login screen, right? If I try to manipulate this, if user is not known, it's going to take me to the home page, which is the dashboard. Implement all those services that we have already created. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do, give me a moment, let me switch to my bigger screen for a clearer view. So I hope this is clear and we can all see the screen perfectly. My screen, let me bring up this screen here. All right, so I hope we all can see it clearly now. So I created this login screen, right? So I'm going to implement the method to handle this. We are already validating it in our previous lessons, okay? So what I'm going to do here is very simple. I'm going to create, let me wrap this with a stack widget. So stack widget allows us to place widget on top another widget. So we can say something like show a circular progress indicator like so, right? You can see that progress indicator. I want it to be on the center of the screen. I'm going to save it. Now you can see the loading indicator. So basically what I want to do, instead of just showing this loading indicator like that, I'm going to check if the login provider dot is loading, then show it. Remember, we are already checking for is loading false by default. So if loading is true, currently is false, so you're not seeing it. But whenever we click on this login and loading changes state to true, it's going to update the status as well. So right here, what I'm going to do is very simple. First, I'm going to mark this as a sync. Then since I already have the email and password and they cannot be null, what I can do is to call, okay. All right, so what I'm doing here now is just call. You don't need I need that inside here. So this is the dialog that is going to show in case there's any error. Right, there's a lot of, so we're going to call login provider.login, right? I know I did not, so we pass the email first, we pass the password as well. So what this is doing is to call login provider.login, right? I think I need to make all these methods to be future, even though they are not going to return anything. It makes it much more better to wait for the states, right? We also need this to be a future of void, right? So here now, what happens? I need to await this guy to perform whatever he's trying to perform. And then login provider coming from this. So the reason why I made this consumer to be, the parent widget of every other thing, because this one is also going to listen to it, right? We can also streamline it to this button alone and then use context.read, right? Or context.watch, right? To listen to the change. We can do that and then just move the scope of this consumer down to this button. Okay, you can also do that. And it will also help to improve performance. So here now we have if login provider, what we are going to check immediately we have logged in user, we're going to check if the login provider dot status, right? So if the status is true, we are going to navigate the user to the home page, right? Else, if there's any error, we are just going to show this scaffold listing are dismissible to be true. We are going to show this dialog, and here the error will just be the error that is coming from login provider dot message, all right? Like so. You know what I told you about this, right? So if context dot is not mounted, you can just return instead of, if it's not mounted. All right, Aaron, I think I'll just have to put it inside here. Or do you think scaffold is better? I think scaffold is even better. Let's remove this. Instead of showing a dialog, let's just show a scaffold messenger, right? This is far more better than that. Okay. All right. And I think this and this are needing this value. Okay, let's say trying to access something here. I'm trying to eliminate this error that keeps showing, but let's see if we can do is mounted, then we turn. This is very stubborn. All right, so I think it wants me to also add it here. It's fine. Your wish is my command. Yeah. So I know this code is, so this mounted is just going to check if the state is still mounted to get rid of. Remember I told you that I cannot use context and say sync block. So that's why I'm just checking for that state. Then instead of using navigator.push, I don't want users to come back to this screen once they have signed in successfully. I want them not to be able to press back button. So I'll go back to our, what is it called? Our splash screen. So I'm going to copy this home page that we have here, right? I'm going to replace it with this one and paste it here. So make sure you import the home page. So this is basically it. Okay, this is basically it. And once we log in, the login state is going to check if there's any error, right? The status, if it's true, then it returns this. If the status is false, it will now return this error and nothing else will happen. Users will need to like start the login again. So let me do implementation for, I did not do something. I think one other one is missing. Let me copy this. I'm going to copy this and paste it somewhere around here. So you will know what I'm trying to do once I'm done. So this one should be Google signing. Simple as that, right? So Google signing. So there's nothing like Google sign up. Normally, if a user has not been authenticated with Google on your app, Google and the Firebase will just handle that for you. So you can just use sign in with Google, sign up with Google, right? The same flow, it's still going to be the same thing. It's still going to authenticate. If the user does not exist, unlike email password that will show an error if the user does not, like unlike login that will show error if the user does not exist, Google sign in will just handle that for us. If the user does not exist, it will go ahead and create the user. But if the user exists, it's going to log in the user. Okay. So here we have Google sign in. And what I'm going to do here is to change this guy to Google Auth. I'm going to remove this. So it just still the same flow. It's going to handle everything. Okay. Pretty much straightforward, right? So straightforward. Now I'm going to work on the Firebase sign up. So remember in the Firebase login, I moved the scope of this authentication to the top of this body. So I'm going to show you guys how to avoid something like this using Firebase. So this is a second example of how you can handle it. So now what you can do here, first I'm going to wrap this. Let me go to sign up. Okay, I'm going to wrap this with a stack widget, and let me go to my login. I will just quickly copy this. Okay, let me just quickly grab all of this. I'll go to sign up, and inside here I'll put this guy here. So login provider does not exist currently. So what I'm going to do is just to use the contest.watch that I told you about, which is going to be contest.watch. And here I'm going to specify the type, which is the change notifier, which is authentication provider. And make sure you close it here. And that's pretty much it. Okay, if we set this to be false, it's going to show the loading indicator, but it's supposed to be like this. So if it's loading, show the loading indicator. Then now moving on to where we have our button, I'm going to wrap this now with the consumer because it's only this button that's going to handle most of the logic. So we can just use authentication provider, consumer. So this is going to be register provider. Then we have our child here. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is just to grab the same logic. Everything is just the same. I told you already. So as long as we have created a service, everything is just going to work fine. And also we created a model, right, to return the authentication model. You can see how I'm just keeping things simple, straight to the point, and understandable. Right. So what we are going to do here, right? I've copied this already. So go to sign up. I'm going to remove this and just paste it inside here. It's just similar stuff. So instead of using, make sure you mark this as asynchronous. Instead of using login provider, we already have a register provider here. So I'm going to replace all the instance of login provider with register provider and then try to import this. You can see this now shouldn't be login. It should be sign up, right? Register provider sign up will pass the email and password, but it's mostly good you use trim, right? Using trim helps a lot to eliminate any potential white spaces. So using trim is very, very important. So you can also use trim here to get rid of white space before and after the string. Okay. So that's pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is to just do a hot restart. So now I'm going to try to sign up. Right now, if you look at our project, you will see that we don't have, you will see that we don't have any authenticated users. Let me go to authentication. You see that we don't have any authenticated users. So what I'm going to do here, I will try to log in. Let's say, I don't like using this keyboard. It makes me type slowly. Let me see if this works. Okay. I'm going to directly use my laptop keyboard. So let's say we have talktodestinyed@gmail.com, and then we try to put a password that is 5. First, this is going to catch the error, right? So let's say we use 67, and I try to log in. The supplied auth credential is malfunction or has expired. So that means this user does not exist in any way. Let me try to, I think I made a mistake somewhere. This shouldn't be. Let's say whenever you're trying to work with logics like this, try as much as possible to log the errors, not just inside the catch. Try to log the errors. So it'll help you a lot in terms of debugging and also knowing what the issue is. So I'm going to do this as well. So save it. So now let me try to log in. You can see the loading state is showing. Once it shows the error, the loading state disappears. Invalid credential. You can see that. That's why sometimes it's good that you properly format the app, right? Properly format it. I know that it's much more better. Let's say we use something like, let's say I use code here. It's going to give us the code. The supplied auth credential is my function. Okay, still the same thing. So let's just proceed. Currently, you can see we cannot sign in because user does not exist in any way, right? And if you notice, even though we refresh this, the user was not created. So let's try to sign up a new user and watch what happens. I'm going to do sign up a new user. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So sign up is going to call this logic to sign up. And if you go to our sign up screen, we have this logic to be called. Okay, so let me click on, is this login? Yeah, this should be sign up. What did I do? So talk to destinyed@gmail.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then let's sign up. You will notice that it's not going to show that error, but now it's taking us directly into our dashboard screen, right? If I go to our project here and refresh, you will see that the new user has been created. I can now reset password manually for the user. I can disable an account. I can disable or delete the user from Firebase console directly. So right now you can see the user has been. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to update this full name. Instead of showing John Doe, it's going to show the full name of the user, right? I think that should work. It's going to show the full name of the user. And yeah, then I'm going to modify this also to show the email of the user. So I'm going to show you guys how to access those values, right? And here I'm going to add a button to log user out. Okay, so currently if I do a hot restart now, notice that it's not going to show us the login screen, but it's going to show the dashboard screen directly. That's because we already handled those case inside our navigator method. All right, so let's go to the home screen where I'm going to show you guys how to properly show the name, logout users, and all that. So first thing, let me add an action button here, which will be an icon button, and this is going to handle logout user. So here I'm going to add an icon, right? Icons dot exit to app. So this should be to log user out of the application. All right, you can change the color as well. Then we have an async. So right here, I'm going to just call, I'm going to call Firebase. No, this should be, I'm just going to call context.read authentication provider dot sign out. No, I think that should be logout, right? And the logout, remember, I was already handling the state, depending on what is going to return, right? So we can do something like this. Let's create a provider for it right here. Its own separate provider. Then I can do provider.logout. Then I can now check if provider.status, if it's true, then I will just navigate user directly to the other screen. So let me go back to where we have our splash screen. So I'm going to copy this Firebase login. So once users log out from the app, we are going to take them directly to the login screen, right? I believe you all understand this because you've been using different kind of apps and you see how they behave. So yeah, this handle is for us. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log out. If everything is successful, it's going to log the user out. And then, so I would do the hot restart. You'll notice that it takes me now to the login screen instead of the dashboard screen. Okay, so that's it for that part. Now let's handle the Google authentication and see how it works. So far, I've showed you guys how to log in using your email and password. I've also showed you guys how to sign up using your email and password. So let's go to, okay, yeah, this is the sign up screen. No, this is the dashboard. So let's go to the login screen. I think this validator check is not important for this. So I'm just going to remove it. So now watch what happens. I'm going to save this, okay, and click on Google Sign In, right? It's showing us this Flutter first app, which is not supposed to be. So in order for us to fix this, you just go to your info.plist file, change this, you will see the CL bundle name, yeah, this is it. So you need to change this guy to the name of your app. So whatever your app is, to match it. Also change this guy to be the name of your app. So change it appropriately to be the name of your app, how you want it to display, right? So I cannot do this in this video because it will require me to kill the app and rerun it again. So we have spent a lot of time in this video, so I just want to cut and make things short. So right here, I'm going to click on continue. Notice that if I click on cancel, oops, something happened. It's error, but it still took us to the login screen. It still took us to the dashboard screen, which shouldn't be. Let's see Google Auth, login status. If it's true, contest unmounted, yeah. So I think there is an error somewhere because if I do hot restart, the user was not created. So nothing, it's still going to take us to login screen. But watch what happens when I click on cancel, it's still taking me to dashboard screen, which shouldn't be the case. And you can see we are getting errors, access token null and all that. So what I need to do here is to, let me update, check what we are doing wrong. User status, sign in with Google. Let's see. All right, you can see when there's an error, I'm still returning status of true, which shouldn't be the case. I'm supposed to return status of false. Status of false, yeah. So that error was from my end. So just like others, you can see that we are returning true and false. Oops, even this one we are returning true. No, no. We are returning true. This status should be false. This status should be false. This one too should be false. Yeah, this should be false. So why did this one show error and this one is showing something else? So let me try it again. I'm going to log in now and cancel. You can see an error occurred. Please try again. So this is what I was expecting to see. So let's proceed now. Let's proceed. I'm going to click on continue. So from this continue now, if I click on cancel, watch what happens. It's still showing us the error. So let's proceed with the normal authentication flow. It's going to show you the list of your emails, right? All your emails that are currently signed into the simulator. So in this case, I'm going to use this one. Click on it. And you can see it's showing us signing to project 10, blah, blah, blah. This is not really right. It's supposed to show you your project name, right? So let me show you how to fix that. You're going to go to sign in method settings. From here, I think there's something called user action. I can't remember. Template, yeah. So let's go to template and go to done that one time. Okay, we are going to update this. No, this one. I can't remember how I fixed it one time. There is supposed to be a way to update the Google name, right? Yeah, so project facing name for public facing name for project. Currently, I was showing sign into project this. So you're going to change it to the name of your app. So let me just say this is Flutter app, right? You're going to change it. So go to sign in method, click on the sign in method, and you see user sign in name. So what I did was give it some time to just save. What I did was to click on the Google Authenticator, like the edit configuration. You're going to see, oh, that thing has gone out. Okay, I think errors, we are definitely going to see other errors too. It's telling us to enable Google sign in from Android app. You must provide the SHA-1 release fingerprint for each app in order to work with. So, but since we are using iOS, we are not going to encounter that error. But if you are coming from Android background, you need to set up your release fingerprint. So just click on it. Just go to this website, okay? developer.all.com, Android, Google. But if you want to easily access it, it's fine. Just go to your project setting. Go to your project setting, click on this project setting. And if you scroll down, you can see the project name, right? We have updated it to Flutter app, right? This is even easier. Just edit it from here. It's going to update that stuff that showed initially. Then if you scroll down, yeah, this is the public facing name. So you just need to update it from here. Then if you scroll down, you can see for iOS, it's just clear and everything. Then for Android, if you are working with Android, to tell you to put the certificate fingerprint. So in order to get this done, click on this question mark icon, click on see this page. It's going to create similar screen like this one for you. Then what you're going to do is just to scroll down. If you release your app to App Store, you need to also generate this key as well for your app on App Store. But if you build a release version of your app and share it with somebody via APK, you will need to also generate the SHA-1 key. And if you are working with, if you have already uploaded your app to Firebase, Google Play Store, you will also need to get the signing certificate key, right, from Firebase Google Play console, right? You need to get it from the integrity section. But for debug mode, I'm going to show you an example of how to do it for debug mode, and you can also use the same method to do it for release mode. You Windows users, just use this command, right? You can see that you need to specify your key name and your key store paths. I'm going to talk later about deploying to Firebase. So here now we are going to copy this Mac to Linux, okay? So you're going to copy this guy, right? Then you go to your project terminal, just paste it here and click enter. So the default password is Android. That's for Android like this, all lowercase. I know you cannot see it here because it's password, so it will try to hide the password for you. But if you make any mistake, try to delete it, clear it, and you will not really see what you're typing or what you're clearing, but try to clear it or start it all over again. Well, let me say I put the wrong password now. It's going to show this error because the password is not correct, okay? But if the password is correct, let's say Android, and click enter, it's going to show me the SHA-1 key signing certificate. So copy this first one, go to your project. We can close this now. Go to your project, and inside here, you add fingerprint, paste it, right? And then save. You might also want to add this other one too if you want. It's still the same thing. You come here, add fingerprint and save, okay? But I don't like adding it. So this is cool for Android users if you are building for Android. Okay, you need to set this up. For iOS, you don't need this. So now that we have completed that section, what I'm going to do now is to try to log in again. So let me go to Google Sign In. This did not change. That's supposed to change. Yeah, it's supposed to change. So I'm going to click on sign in. Oops, that guy did not change. I think it takes some time for it to change. So we'll just allow it. This should be it. This should be it, because I know the public facing name is not something we can update inside our plist file. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not something we can update here. So that should work. No, I think, yeah, I said something about updating it here. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we're supposed to update it here for it to update. I have forgotten. The one that needs this public facing name is when we try after selecting the email address that we want to use. But if you want to change that particular one, you can see now to continue to Flutter app. It changed. Sign into Flutter app. You can see it has changed to the name that we specified here. All right. So here you can select update the email address you want to use. It's just like your normal login flow, right? So Firebase will just handle all these things. Once you're done and satisfied with the credential, just click on continue. And once everything checks, it's going to take us to the dashboard screen. So it's still loading, trying to validate things. And yeah, voila. So if we try to do a hot restart now, you will notice that it's going to take us now to the dashboard. So quickly, let me show you guys how to retrieve first name and last name, right? The user full name, and then display the email address right here. So quickly, and also we can use this one as the profile image. So let's quickly move over to our dashboard. This video is very long, so I really don't like how it's very long. So here I'm just going to use, instead of asset image, we're going to use network image, and then we'll do something like Firebase auth dot current instance dot current user dot display photo URL. Sorry. So most times this photo URL is going to be null. So you make sure you handle the null and maybe provide a default icon. So I think we already have an icon here, which we can just make as default, which is the dummy user dummy. So we can use asset slash user dummy. So you can just handle something like this. So if you save it now, you can see my default email photo URL is there. Most times it might not work if you're using normal email and password to log in. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that guy. We can also do the same thing for the full name. So let me do string concatenation here, dot display name, right? You see Destiny Ed, which is the display name coming from the Firebase console. Let's update this to email address. So it's going to show me the email address. Dot email. All right. You can see the email, talk to Destiny Ed. You can also check for other things. Is email verified? It's going to return true, because when you're using Google sign up, by default, it's going to be verified. But if you're using email and password, it's going to show verified as false, because you need to verify the email address. Then is anonymous, phone number. You can get the phone number. I think I did not add phone number, so it's going to be null most times. So, and you can see other things that you can work with, right? You can also get my UID, the user ID. This is the user ID, default identifier. If you go to your Firebase project now, let's go to authentication. You see Google provider. You're going to see the UID. It's matching what we already have here. So that's it, guys, for how, this is how you work with Firebase authentication to set up user data, sign in with email and password and Google sign in. So if you want to see a comprehensive course or a comprehensive section where I'm going to talk about Firebase authentication, let me know in the comment section below, okay? And I'm going to create a comprehensive tutorial that is going to cover two-factor authentication, role-based login, and a lot of things. So let me know if you want to see something like that. And do not forget to drop your questions as well. And like this video, share it with your friends and subscribe as well. So guys, I will see you all in class. I think on Saturday we'll be having a live Q&A section. And also to wrap up this mentorship program, there will be a full course, like a full app creation, like putting everything together. We're going to have a section like this, like that, to talk about app, working with Firebase, working with local database, working with provider, managing our state and all that. I'm going to put everything together. So stay tuned. I will let you guys know about the next class in our Telegram channel. So stay tuned. And if you have not joined, I'm going to add the link in the description of this video. So make sure you join and be part of the community. See you all in our next class. Thank you.